Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you have a unique experience you'd like to share as a guest. Podmatch helps you connect with guests and hosts who have similar interests, experiences, and goals, making sure that each connection is meaningful and impactful. Thanks to Podmatch, I've connected with parents and caregivers worldwide and supported them in sharing their stories on Quiet Connection. If you'd like to check them out, visit www.joinpodmatch.com/Quiet Connection Podcast and learn more. Hi, welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. In today's episode, I'm connecting with Kim, a former teacher turned overwhelmed stay-at-home mom. She describes her journey of uncovering holistic methods like Reiki, yoga, and tapping to heal past trauma and transform into a more self-assured individual, both in her personal life and as a parent. She now empowers other women and mothers to find their own inner strength and peace. Let's hear from Kim. Hello. Today I'm here with Kim. Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. I will start by asking you what I ask all my guests. Could you tell me and my listeners a little bit about yourself and who you were before becoming a mom?
Sure. So my name is Kim Keene, and I'm a mom to two daughters, a preteen and a teen, two girls. And so the joke is that it's payback for my parents because I gave my parents a run for their money when I was a teenager. And I also have three fur babies. So, well, they're elderly now. So I'll say three grand furs, I guess. So they're all rescues, two dogs and a cat. And then my husband and I, we've been married for a little over 15 years. So that's like the gist of Kim. And then I also, when I'm not wearing all of those hats, I help women through sound healing and life coaching and other holistic healing modalities.
Yeah, which I love. And I'm so excited to sort of dive into and talk a little bit more about.
Awesome.
Yeah. Who were you and what were you sort of super into before you had kids and before you were married?
Yeah. So I've always been like a little bit of a pistol, so to speak. My husband calls me the firecracker. So I'll say my journey before having kids, it was really a journey of self-discovery because I was in an abusive relationship as a teenager for 5.5 years. So when I came out of that, I was 21 and I hadn't gone to college right out of high school. And so it was kind of like, making up for that lost time of not having the college experience. So I was quite the wild child and, was like out, dancing with my girlfriends all the time. So, and I love dancing still to this day. And really just trying to figure out like, who was I? But always knew that I desperately wanted to be a mom. So I always tease my husband. I'm like, I would have, become like, I would have let you get me pregnant like 2 weeks after we started dating. And he was like, whoa, pump the brakes, lady. So, but I've always been like, always have loved dancing. I love the beach. So any chance I can get to the beach and put my, toes in the sand, I'm all about that. I love ice cream. So also if I can eat ice cream too.
So you mentioned that you always wanted to be a mom. You always wanted to have kids.
Yes.
I think that's when you said what you said to your husband. It's so funny. When I first met my partner, I was very young, but I was like, I want to have kids now. And then,
yes.
Yeah. But then I was like, nope, never mind. I never want to have kids ever. And so it was it, and it was weird. So, and then I changed my mind again. Obviously I have two kids now, but I was the same way. And he was kind of like, we're 19. Let's slow our roll a little bit here.
Yeah.
So I can relate a little bit. Let's see. I also have mom brain, and I don't know where you're at right now in the country, but I'm on the East Coast and it's 5 p.m. and I'm like losing my mind. So
that's okay.
So when you and your husband finally did decide to take that step into parenthood, what did that journey look like for you?
So it was actually, I will say my pregnancy journeys both were pretty boring. in terms of like, going through doctor's appointments and things like that. With my first baby, there was like a concern that she was going to be too big. So because apparently I was measuring 3 weeks ahead. So on my due date, I got an ultrasound to see if they thought she was going to be too big. And they're like, oh, 6 to 8 pounds. We'll let you try it. And I'm like, 8 pounds? What in the world? And she was 8'7". So, and I had an epidural. So the first pregnancy, pain management was not my strength, even though we did the classes to like learn how to breathe and all of that. I was like, F that breathing. That's not working. I'll scream. No. The nurse was not pleased. She was like, we need to talk pain management because you have to stop screaming.
I hate that. I've heard that so many times. I'm like, I'm sorry. No, I do not have to stop screaming.
Yes. So, and it's funny because my first daughter was born in New Hampshire. So we're from Delaware and we were in New Hampshire for school. And so New Hampshire is like, we laugh because it will say it's like very granola. So their state motto is live free or die. They like, are like nature people. And so the fact that she was like quick to be like epidural was kind of shocking to me because I thought for sure that they would be like more apt to be like, let's work through it naturally. Let's get the exercise ball. Let's get into the tub, like whatever. And she was like, no, pain management for you. And I was like, okay, great. Thanks. But it was, so I will say that pregnancy was fairly normal. It was actually not really the pregnancy that was stressful. It was actually where I was working at the time. I was an elementary school teacher and my coworkers were really not friendly to me. So I really had hid my pregnancy for as long as I could because I didn't want them asking me questions. I didn't want to I just didn't want to deal with them. And so of course they were all talking behind my back. And I was trying to look for shirts and dresses and things that were hiding my little bump. And finally, on the last day of that school year, one of them came into my room and confronted me. She was like, you're pregnant, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And she like went running down the hall like, we knew it. We knew it. And I'm like, wow, ladies, grow up, grow up. So that was, I'll say, like the most stressful thing about that pregnancy was that I was around women who were moms, but weren't really like nice women. They were very catty, very, just a lot of drama and not like a welcoming group of women. So that was really a challenge. And on top of it was my first year of teaching. So it was like not the stress of being pregnant because I was super excited about that. And it took us probably like 6 or 7 months to get pregnant. So I'll say like it didn't happen right away. Some women are like, oh, first time. Nope, that wasn't us. But it was like, I've kind of had like mixed emotions about it. I was super excited, but then I really didn't want anyone at work to know. So, but at home we were excited. Family was excited because my oldest daughter is the first granddaughter for my family.
It's so crazy. Wait, so I know I said that I don't like to interject a lot, but like so much of what you're saying, I'm a special educator. I worked in the school system. Yeah, and I'm in Vermont. So we're New Hampshire's neighbor. And and working in the school system while pregnant working anywhere while pregnant is cuckoo, but working in the school system while pregnant is a whole new level of stress.
Yes. So I actually went to Keene State, which is like right on the New Hampshire Vermont line.
Yeah. So it's just funny, the little connections. But yeah, that's ridiculous that you weren't able to sort of enjoy your pregnancy because everyone at work was talking behind your back.
Yes. So, and that was just them in general. So my second year of teaching there, then ironically, I had their children in my class. So then they were super nice to me. And I had, so I was pregnant for the last half of my first year of teaching and then the first half of my second year of teaching. And I had their kids in my class. So then of course they're throwing me baby showers and checking in on me. And then when I came back from maternity leave, they were there at the door, like, how are you handling it? How is it, how'd you do dropping off at daycare? Do you need anything? So it was like totally this Dr. and Jekyll Hyde situation with them. So I never really felt trustworthy of them. And I was just, the saying, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And then once their children were into not my class the following school year, then they really didn't say much to me. after that, which was fine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, it's to anyone who's not in the teaching profession, um, it's one thing to go to work and not necessarily be friends with your coworkers. I feel like people who are working a typical 9 to 5, you're not besties with who you work with. If you don't get along with your co-teachers and the other people that you're working with in a school, it is a whole new ball game.
Yeah, it
It
is.
makes the entire experience so much more challenging and so much more complicated.
Yes. And then, so in my delivery with my first daughter was pretty normal. When they were doing like delivering the afterbirth, the placenta came detached, and the doctor was like, "Oh, good thing that didn't happen during delivery because you could have bled out." I was like, "I would really have rather not known that, but thanks for sharing." And
Oh
that
my
was like,
gosh.
the scariest thing, but it was like done and over. It was no big deal. I'll say it was, the postpartum was hard because when my daughter was 9 months old, my husband moved back to Delaware for work, and I stayed in New Hampshire. And
Mm.
so all of our family was down here. So I was working full time teaching kindergarten and taking care of a 9 month old by myself. And he was only coming up every other week.
Oh my
So it was like,
gosh.
so we got just enough clothes to where I didn't have to worry about doing laundry until he came home. Because then, and the apartment we were in, I had to go downstairs to do the laundry. So, and I just felt like that for the moment he left, we were both, my daughter and I were both taking turns being sick.
Mm.
So that was super stressful because we didn't have, like I said, we didn't have any family up there. So that was really hard, trying to keep my mindset right for myself, making sure that I was getting enough sleep, eating properly, and then being, present enough to be a good mom to my baby, and then still being able to show up at work. So that was a really, really tough time. And we did that from September until the end of January. And he had gotten a new job in between then, and we could leave. I could move back because I didn't have to carry the insurance anymore. And he was making enough to where I could leave in the middle of the school year and not have to worry about if we could make ends meet. And
Mm.
I was so relieved when I, got to come back home and not be alone in New Hampshire by myself, because it was also like the dead of winter, and it was the snowiest winter ever that year. And then when we would drive him back to the airport, my daughter would scream herself to sleep in the back seat as we were driving back to the apartment. So it was just all the way around from September of that year until the end of January the following year. It was really, really brutal, because I was, really a single mom, even though I was married. And my daughter was never a good sleeper. So she was really not sleeping then and was up all the time. And so I finally had one of the girls that worked at her daycare, come and stay a couple times. So like she could be up with Lily and I could just get some sleep. Or if Lily needed to be home from daycare, then she would stay with Lily and I could go to work because I was running out of days to take. And it was just, it's crazy how hard it is to function when you don't get sleep. You think you get past that point when babies are teeny tiny, but when they're still, 9 months, 10 months, 15 months, and they're still not sleeping, it's enough to drive you
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah, sleep deprivation in and of itself can contribute to mental health disorders. So like
Yes.
yeah, it's real. It's real. Sleep deprivation is insane. And you were doing this
Yes.
all on your own. You had no support network. You didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine. So you finally were able to go back home.
Yes.
What was that transition like?
So we had to move in with my mom and my stepdad, which is not the most enjoyable house to be in, because they don't
Mm.
have the greatest marriage. So there we are with, my husband, me, and Lily, who at that point was um, just like hitting 14 months. She wasn't sleeping through the night. My aunt also lives in their house. So Lily had one bedroom. My husband and I had a bedroom. My aunt had a bedroom. My mom, my stepdad had a bedroom. So the house was at full capacity. And then on top of it, I was babysitting my niece, both of my nieces who were the same age as my daughter and then a couple years older. So I went
Mm.
from working full time up there with no support to coming home to bickering parents, sharing a space that we didn't really want to share with them, and taking care of two other kids, all like, trying to get acclimated to not being a full-time teacher anymore, which was hard. And, cooking for the kids all day and then making sure that dinner was on the table for everyone when they got home because everyone was working outside of the home. So it was like a sense of relief, like, thank goodness I'm home now. And I can get the help when I need it. But at the same time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is relentless. I can't catch a break.
You were running at not even full capacity. You were running on empty.
Pretty much, yes. I just will never forget the day that, because I flew home from New Hampshire with Lily, and then my husband had the car parked there at the airport parking, and he then drove a U-Haul truck up to get our stuff and drive it home. And when I got to the car in the airport parking lot, of course it snowed in Philadelphia, not in New Hampshire. So I had to shovel out the car from the airport parking lot. But when I got into the car and I just turned it on, I backed out of that parking spot and I was heading down 95 South. I just went, like, I finally felt like I could catch my breath, even if it was just for a moment.
And then it was just chaos again.
Yeah. So we lived with my mom for February and March, and then we closed on a house in April. So we weren't there whole long, but of course it felt like an eternity. So then we had to go do the move all over again, get all of our stuff from my grandmother's basement, move it into the house, adjust to a house that needed to work. So it was just like this nonstop, still keeping my nieces and babysitting them. And this amongst all these packed boxes that needed to be addressed and dealt with. So, but as moms and women, we have to roll with the punches. And so we just do what we need to do to get through the day.
And it's not fun and it's not easy, but we do it. We do it every day. Okay. So we're back home in Delaware. We're in our own home now, which you mentioned it being a super old house. Ours is a super old farmhouse too. So I totally can relate to that whole experience and trying to.
Actually, that's not the old house. We've moved 3 times in 11 years. So we moved to Middletown, Delaware, then we moved to Warwick, Maryland, and now we're in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. So since 2011.
Oh my gosh, okay, just kidding. Okay, so at this point you're in Delaware. Yes. And where did you decide you were ready for kid number 2 amongst all of this chaos?
Well, when I got pregnant with Casey, I was back in the classroom. So I had gotten a teaching job, and we just knew we wanted our girls 3 years apart. Well, our kids, because we obviously didn't know we were going to have a second girl, but we wanted our kids at least 3 years apart. So, we were kind of doing the math and we're like, okay, it's that time. Here we go. And they're just 2 weeks shy of being 3 years apart. So that was hard though, because I was back at work and I was teaching in an inner city school. And I was really not prepared for that, because I went from teaching in New Hampshire, which was very suburban, to teaching inner city. And I went to the neighbor school just a few blocks away in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, because we were bused into the city for school from the suburbs. And so naively, I was like, oh, I know this. I know the neighborhood. I got this. And I was so not prepared. So it was stressful. I was so unhappy. I was burning out in my career then. I find out that I'm pregnant with my second. And that was really, really hard, because I was exhausted and pregnant. And with both of my pregnancies, I was nauseous and I gagged, but I never actually threw up for literally the first 5 months of my pregnancy, both times, 5 months to the day. And then it went away and I was fine. I stopped the gagging. So I'm trying to teach kindergartners who don't listen and who are aggressive, and I'm gagging with a bump. And of course, with baby number 2, you show much faster. So there was no hiding this one. And at this school, surprisingly, I didn't even feel like I needed to hide it. It was just a different dynamic. The people were there, I'll say, more down to earth and didn't care. They're like, oh, great, congratulations. And then that was it, moving on.
Yeah.
But that school environment was very stressful, because we were one of the lowest performing schools in the state of Delaware. So we were being monitored by the state of Delaware Education Department. And there were so many observations and meetings and requirements, and it was just so stressful. So I was miserable teaching there, and then still trying to not exhaust myself being pregnant, because I had a 2-year-old at home to take care of. So going from work all day to get Lily from daycare, and my husband's work schedule was crazy. So again, even though I was married, I often felt like a single mom.
Yeah.
So after that school year, I was like, I can't go back to that school. It's not safe. So I went to a different school, and started that school year pregnant, and then had Casey in the middle of the school year. And I swore I had pregnancy brain at the beginning of that school year in the new school, because I was like, this is so much better than where I left. But I was like, oh my God, when I got back from maternity leave, I was like, this is exactly the same kind of school that I just left.
Oh, no.
So that was stressful. Like my sub got fired on my maternity leave because she couldn't handle it.
Oh my God.
And yeah, the joke was that they were worried they were going to find and it was an all girls school, that they were going to find the girls like tying her to the chair with jump ropes and like running amok. That's how bad the sub was. So thank God no one told me when I was out on maternity leave with the second baby that was the case. So I came back and they're like, yeah, we had to put the music teacher in and fire your sub. I was like, oh, okay.
My God.
Yes.
Well, so when I was reading your profile, you're a self-described overwhelmed mom.
Yes.
Holy crap, I can see why.
Yes. And that was when I was working full time. So, but it was actually when I left my teaching career, that was where the overwhelm, like I thought I was overwhelmed then, but when I left my teaching career, when, let's see, Lily was 5 and Casey was 1. No, Casey was 2. Because burnout. So my husband, the following school year, he was like, you can't go back. You're miserable. Like no one wants to be around you. You're too exhausted for the kids. You're, short fuse. So that's the other like aspect of when you're a teacher, you take care of other people's kids all day. You give all of your attention to them. And then you come home and you're too tired for your own kids. Mm-hmm. And they're littles. So, you have a 1-year-old, they are constant energy. They do not stop. And if your Lily is anything like my Lily, she never stopped talking.
Oh yeah, girl. Same.
They literally go to sleep talking and they wake up talking.
Yes. I had to send my husband up last night because she was talking to herself in her bed. I'm like, girl, it's 9:30. Go to sleep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just like, and I felt I had so much guilt for being, a tired, miserable, burnout teacher mom, because I wasn't showing up for my kids the way that I wanted to. And so, when my husband said, okay, you can't go back to teaching, that was devastating, because I always thought that I would be a teacher until I was like 90. And, the fact that didn't happen was more than I could handle. But I also felt this like overwhelming sense of relief. So I was really struggling too with adjusting to being a stay-at-home mom, because I never saw myself as that. Mm-hmm. And so, again, like short fuse, no patience, just feeling like I just needed everybody to leave me alone. Didn't want to really like engage in like playing with my kids. Partly too, because my Lily was bossy when she was little. So she'd be like, you want to play Barbies? Sure. And then we'd sit down and she would say this. And I would say it and she'd be like, no, like this. And I would say, and she'd be like, no, like this. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to play with you. So I will watch you because you're not being a nice friend right now.
Oh my God, our Lilies sound like twinsies, except your Lily is a teen now. So please tell me it gets better, please.
Yeah, it does, because now that Lily is a teenager, she'll be 14 in a couple weeks, a month actually. She still has her moments, but you can definitely see where she has less of the bossy personality that she had when she was little, and she definitely is like mellowed out a little bit. But it's kind of funny because she looks like me and she acts like me, so I like was getting again a taste of my own medicine.
That's what all of our parents tell us. And one day you're going to have a kid just like you. Yeah. And you want to be like, good, I hope so. And then you have them and you're like, oh man.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, now I get it. I get it. So,
my Lily is definitely a little me. So
yeah. So my Casey, my younger, she's definitely more like my husband. She's more easygoing. She's definitely much more like chill and go with the flow. My Lily loves to be like center of attention. She's like, if someone wants me to perform for them, where's the stage? And Casey's like, no, I'm good to sit in the background. I don't need to be center spotlight.
Oh man, those second children, they teach us their own lessons. Our first children teach us how to be a parent, and then our second children kind of teach us how we would have done things differently, I think.
Yeah. So I was really adjusting with that role because again, my husband was still working crazy hours. So I just felt like I never got a break. And so eventually the walls closed in and I tried doing things with my girls, like taking them to mommy and me groups. And of course, my kids aren't participating. And so then I'm getting angry, like I'm trying to do this fun thing with you and you want no parts of it. And I'm sweating. They're
Mm.
like resisting, I'm like, get the rhythm sticks and tap the rhythm sticks like the teacher is saying. And they're like, we don't want to sing that song. And I'm like, oh, look at all the other kids. All the other kids are liking this and having fun. Like, why can't you? And so they're like, because we don't want to. And I was like, I'm trying to be a good mom here. I'm like trying to do things, get you out of the house, get myself out of the house. And it just felt like it wasn't working. So I decided like, okay, I'm really struggling. Let me go talk to a therapist. And so I thought she was going to be like, okay, Kim, you're just having an identity crisis because you left your teaching career. And here are the 3 easy steps to fix all that. So don't you worry your little heart about anything. And that was not it at all. So it was like a lot of like the trauma from the abusive relationship as a teenager was dredged up and generational trauma and childhood trauma. And so then I was so hyper fixated on that and like trying to heal all that is exhausting in and of itself. So I still felt like I was struggling to be a good mom for my kids. And it was like this, like being miserable and angry all the time and at the world. And then not wanting to repeat the same things that were passed down to me to my kids. But just was so angry that I was just like a loose cannon still, like screaming at everyone all the time. So yeah, so that was really I think really where the most overwhelm set in because I was trying so hard to break the cycle for my kids, but also give myself what I needed and not really always having the space to do that because again, I didn't have help. My parents worked full time. At that point, they weren't retired. My husband had crazy work hours. All my friends worked during the day. So I was literally the only person I knew that was home
Yeah.
and needing help. And I didn't feel comfortable looking on care.com or something like that for someone to come help me. So I just felt like I was stuck in this perpetual place of not having anyone.
Yeah, I mean, and so one of my questions was going to be about your support network, but it sounds like you really didn't have one.
No. And my
No.
husband, so that was like a lot of our, like a lot of struggle in our marriage at that time because I was so like angry with him. Like, I need, I need you to just not go to work on Wednesday morning for 3 hours. One, so I can drive to the therapist, stay there for an hour and bawl my eyes out, and then drive myself home and just give me like a half an hour to get myself together before you leave for work. And he just felt like he couldn't do that with his work schedule because he didn't have good boundaries with work. And so I was just like, well, fine, I'll figure out how to do it on my own. So there were times where I brought the younger with me to therapy because the older was in kinder at this point. So, then I'm trying to censor myself because she's 2. She understands what I'm saying. And I also didn't want her to see me being a sobbing, bawling mess. So that was exhausting. So it was just this constant, I felt like the struggle of how do I do this so that I don't scar everyone, including my husband, and give myself what I need. And so I also don't end up killing anyone. Like it was really a struggle.
Yeah, what a weight to carry.
Yeah.
Talk about mental load and mental overload. Oh my gosh. So what did eventually get you through that period? I'm so glad that you found a therapist. I'm sorry that you weren't able to utilize it in the way that you should have been able to all the time. But what sort of got you through to the other side of that?
Well, really the therapist was it was not a good fit. And all she wanted to do was, she just wanted to medicate me. And so that was her solution. And so I saw myself as a failure for only lasting as a teacher for 6 years when I thought that I was going to do that until I was 90. And then feeling like a failure for not loving being a stay-at-home mom because, at this time I really didn't have social media. So it wasn't like I knew about like the Pinterest worthy and the Instagram worthy highlight reel of like mom life. But I just knew like societally, you're supposed to love being a stay-at-home mom because so many women would give anything, working moms would give anything to be a stay-at-home mom. Women who can't have children would give anything to be a stay-at-home mom. And here I was being resentful about it. So I felt like a failure and had a lot of guilt around that. And then she just wanted to medicate me. So I felt like if I had to take that pill to be able to get through the day, that would be an epic fail, another fail for me. Now, if there's someone else that needs medication, please, by all means. So I'm not saying like, oh, if you have to take a pill to get through the day, you're a failure. Absolutely 100% not. That was just how I felt about myself in the situation. And then she was gaslighting me about it. So it was really not a great situation in therapy. And I stayed seeing her for almost 2 years until I finally reached my breaking point.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that related to, I hate to even ask this question, but do you think you stuck with it because of your past in terms of the trauma of your past relationships? Like you were like, I can deal with this?
I think I just was so worried, like if I'm not seeing this person, then who in the world is going to help me? What am I going to do? Like, am I going to be miserable and quote unquote broken like this forever? Like I have to be able to figure out the solution. Like this has to work, because if it doesn't, then what? And so there were a few glimmers. So she said, oh, you should try yoga. So I started doing yoga, and that was really powerful because it allowed me to stop focusing on all the things that weren't going right, all the things that I didn't have, and just allow myself just that little space on my yoga mat to just focus on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then came meditation. And so in this, every time she would give me a label, oh, do you know you're codependent? Then that was really she would give me the label. And then I would go and I would, frantically research and learn all I could about codependency. But then the downfall was that I got stuck on that label. Well, I'm miserable because I'm codependent, and I can't do this because I'm codependent. And then it was the next label and the next label and the next label. So then there is a local community college in our area that does a Mind, Body, Spirit Fest every year. And I somehow learned about it. I don't even know how. And I thought it was like to learn about yoga and meditation. So I went, and I was so excited. I carried in my yoga mat. I had my yoga pants. I was like, I'm going to learn about yoga and meditation. And it was not about yoga and meditation. It was about all things holistic. So like there were Reiki practitioners, psychics, crystals, like all natural soaps, things that I didn't even know existed. And I was like, oh, hold on, let me go put my yoga mat back in the car. I'll be right back. And so that experience was life-changing, because that was when I had my very first Reiki session. And after just 30 minutes of Reiki, I just felt so much lighter. And I was like, okay, well, this is amazing. What is this? And that was really what sparked my interest and realization that I could heal the things without having to be gaslighted by a therapist to take medication that I didn't want to take. And so the Reiki was helping. I felt lighter, but I knew that there was still some missing pieces to the puzzle. And a couple years later, I was back at the Mind, Body, Spirit Fest, and there was a coach there who does NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and which helps with reframing past experiences. And so I was like, oh, I think that's the ticket. But she wanted to charge me $10,000.
Oh my God.
I was like, I don't have $10,000. And like, what if I spend $10,000 and this doesn't work?
Yeah.
Then what? Then I've just wasted a year of private school tuition.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh
and then
my
I'll feel guilty about that.
Yeah. So what did you do?
So I knew of a life coach through a networking group I had visited. And I said to her, do life coaches really charge people $10,000? And she said, no. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, she was like, I work with a life coach and she's doing a workshop this weekend and you should come. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I'll come. And it was that weekend where I was like, I finally got the missing pieces of the puzzle. I learned where the mindset hangups were. So it was like, I finally had that magic sauce of life coaching, Reiki, crystals, yoga, and meditation. So I was working on the mindset through life coaching, but I was doing the energetic work through crystals and Reiki and yoga and meditation. And that was where I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. I get why I was miserable in my teaching career. I get why I'm struggling as a stay-at-home mom. I get why I ended up in the abusive relationship. I see where my struggles are with my husband sometimes. So that was just mind-blowing on one weekend. So then I was hooked. I was like, okay, now I need to be a life coach. I need to do, and so in all this time, so then I was already a Reiki practitioner at that point. So then I just started adding the modalities because I'm like, this is amazing. And if you need medication, great. But if you want to try something before that, there are so many things out there. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I had started talking to other women who were in the same situation as me, as being gaslighted by therapists to take medication, being told that that was the only way out of the struggle that they were experiencing, but not wanting to because they also were going to feel like a failure if that was the only way that they were going to be able to love being a mom.
Isn't it interesting? You've said it a few times now about loving being a mom.
Yeah.
It's okay to not love being a mom.
Yeah.
It's totally okay. For years, I would say I do not like being a mom. I do not love being a mom. I love my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being my kids' mom, but I don't like this whole mom thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And as a fellow stay-at-home mom who never envisioned herself as a stay-at-home mom, holy shit.
Yes.
I mean, working in the school is its own circus, but being a stay-at-home mom is probably the most difficult job I have ever had in my entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's okay to not like it.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you started making that shift and putting those pieces together and sort of learning more about yourself, did that shift your view of yourself as a mother?
It did, because I realized that a lot of what I was doing, and let's be transparent, I still don't always love being a mom. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard sometimes when you have a teenager and a tween and they're going at it. Like this summer, we had a fight over television, and my husband's like, let's make a schedule for the TV because we only have one TV in our house. Mm-hmm. And I said, absolutely not. We are not making a schedule for the television. I'll unplug the goddamn thing before we make a schedule. Like, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. Because you know who's going to get stuck managing the schedule? Me.
Yeah.
Not having it. I already wear 8,000 hats as it is. I don't need to add the hat of TV schedule management. So I realized that a lot of the reason that I was struggling was because I had all this old programming, plastered on me. I had seen my mom, not always be patient with us because my parents divorced when I was young and I was the only child from their marriage. So at my mom's house, my stepdad had 3 older boys from his previous marriage, and then they had a son together who was 6 years younger. Mm-hmm. And on the weekends that all of us kids were in the house, the older boys picked on me relentlessly because that's what brothers do.
Yeah.
And I was a whiner and a screamer. And so my mom would lose her shit. And I'd cry, and she'd send the boys to their rooms, and then I would still be fussing, and she'd be like, oh my God, enough already. So I could see where I was like, I had learned patterns from my mom because she couldn't cope, because she has her own trauma that she is not healed still to this day. And that was impacting her ability to be a parent. And then I saw where the same thing with my dad and my stepmom, everybody has trauma on some level. Mm-hmm. My family just happens to have really deep, big trauma on both sides. So it was like double whammy of trauma. But I could see where patterns and things that my dad had said to me growing up were still there weighing on me. And so I was in really this huge people-pleasing spiral. And that was also where the struggle was, because I so badly wanted people to look at me and be like, oh my God, well, it didn't work for you as a teacher, but that's okay, because you're a really amazing mom. And I put this so much pressure on myself to be like the perfect mom, kids in the perfect clothes, the house perfectly cleaned and perfectly decorated and, perfectly organized. And then kids in after school activities and, like the pseudo white picket fence. And I had so much pressure on myself to do everything perfectly and just so, because I was looking for someone to validate me, to be like, oh my God, you're so picture perfect. That makes you the best mom ever. And in the process, I was driving myself insane. And I had unrealistic expectations of not only myself, but also of my husband and my kids. And that was really what was causing all the problem. And once I was able to release that control, that need for that perfection, it was a game changer. Things stopped being so stressful.
I can imagine. It's like that sigh of relief in the car again.
Yes. I stopped caring if the playroom was perfectly organized with perfectly pictured bins and labels and color coordination and all of that. And I was like, you know what? Playroom's a mess. Close the door. I don't care. Because at one point when we still lived in Delaware, I had spent all of this time coordinating the baskets in the playroom to be just so like Pottery Barn perfect. And I noticed that my husband, my kids, they were just throwing stuff in any old bin. And I looked at and I noticed. And so I would dump it at the end of the day and I would sort it all over and I would give them a very sweet reminder. I just reorganized the bins. Could you please put the Barbies with the Barbies and the play school with the play school and the Legos with the Legos? Thanks. And then lo and behold, the next day it was all messed up again. And so I looked at my husband. I was like, if you don't put the bins back the right way, I'm going to break your fingers. And he was like, excuse me?
And I laugh.
You heard me.
Yeah. I laugh because I can relate. I don't like it's I think that pressure it's not unique to you. It's not unique to me. We have this pressure and it's amplified when you're a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Let me know if this resonates with you. But for me as a stay-at-home mom, I feel like, well, I'm not contributing to my family financially. So I have to make sure that everything else is perfect. All of the scheduling is perfect. All of the organizing is perfect. And it's not sustainable.
No. And on top of that, dinner menus.
Yes.
So I hate cooking. I don't love it at all. My mom is not domesticated in that way. Like, give me a recipe and I follow it, but I don't love it. So like some people find joy in cooking and baking and things like that. I have no interest, none whatsoever. And so, but because my husband was at work all day and his work schedule was really crazy and demanding, I was like, okay, I'll take one for the team and I'll do it. And there's probably going to be lots of judgment when I say this, but my kids are super picky. So I would make Lily what she wanted to eat and I would make Casey what she wanted to eat. And I had 2 dogs and a cat to feed. And then I would be making a dinner for my husband and me. So it was like, I would jokingly be like, Kim's Kitchen is open for service. Can I take your order? And of course, people well-meaning would be like, well, you should just force your kids to eat what you cook. And I'm like, I fight with my kids enough as it is to put their shoes on when I ask them to hang up their coat on the hook in the closet, put the toys in some bin and not leave them on the floor, like some bin, put your juice pouch in the trash, all of those things. So I'm like, I don't want to fight with kids about what food they eat. As long as they're eating something, fine. Is it making my life more crazy and stressful? Sure is. So to try and minimize my kitchen stress, I had this whole calendar and every Monday was Italian night. Every Tuesday was Mexican night. Every Wednesday was sandwich night. Thursday was fish night. Friday was breakfast night. I remember at one point, and my husband is good. He'll eat pretty much whatever, not picky at all. Because my cooking skills are limited, we lived on tilapia and cod for a long time on fish nights. And he got to the point and he was like, I don't want to eat these anymore. And I was so angry. I was like, you're going to eat what I cook you. Do you understand? Like, how dare you? I have eaten honey mustard chicken and rice and broccoli all through college with you, and you can eat the goddamn fish. So then I was like, then you deal with dinner. Like, you don't want to eat what I'm cooking. Then when you get home after a long day of 13 hours of working, 14 hours of working, you cook dinner. Like, have at it, buddy. So now we just do, and this is not like a sponsor, but now we do HelloFresh, and it takes the stress out of that, and we're wasting less food and we're spending less on groceries. And so that was a huge game changer, being willing to give myself the option to do something other than what I had been doing.
I feel like you must have a camera in my house or something, because I make separate meals for Avery will eat anything. Lily eats nothing.
Yeah.
So yes, I make a separate meal for her every night and separate for my husband and I. So no judgment. We switched to HelloFresh for a very long time for the same reasons.
Yes.
We're not doing it anymore, but I miss it. I miss it so much. But no. So, and this is a judgment-free zone. That is one of our biggest commitments on this podcast, is sharing without judgment or criticism. So you will get no judgment from me. And if my listeners have anything to say about it, then I will get rid of those comments. But no, no judgment. I feel you. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh
and
my gosh.
There's hope for your Lily, because so my Lily now is almost 14 and she started eating more things because she hit 11 and she was embarrassed to be ordering off the kids menu. So she forced herself to start trying things. Casey, on the other hand, she's like, I'll order off the kids menu until I'm 48. Like, I don't care. And so Lily teases her, she was like, what happens when you go on a date with a boyfriend when you're in high school or college or whatever, and he wants to take you to dinner and there is no kids menu? She was going to, and Casey was like, well, then I'm going to tell him I don't want to eat there.
Oh my God.
Well, it's like, you're going to crush the poor boy's soul. Like, you have to learn to eat things other than chicken nuggets and French fries and mac and cheese and pizza and hot dogs and buttered noodles before you start dating boys in high school and college. And Casey's like, nope, he can take it or leave it. I'm like, okay, I guess maybe I've done something right because I have two empowered girls who are like,
Yes.
okay, people can accept me for who I am and how I am. And if they can't, then out the door they go. But at the same time, I'm like, Casey, be nice. Be nice to these boys. They're trying. But thank God we have a long time because she's just 10.
I mean, at least upgrade to chicken tenders. Maybe not chicken. Maybe we can go past the chicken nuggies to the chicken tenders. You can find those almost anywhere.
Yeah. So, so there's hope for your Lily, because my Lily is she's not as picky.
Oh, good. That's good to hear, because I don't think I've ever met a pickier eater than my Lily, but we love them and we do what we have to do for them. Yes. Oh my gosh. So you have talked about some of your coping skills, which are super holistic and super into like energy work and body movement. And I would love to know a little bit more about that and how you use that. And do you incorporate it with your girls? Do your girls participate in any of that?
Yeah. So my girls, Lily is more reluctant. She likes to make fun of, we call it my woo. She likes to make fun of it. But then last year for Christmas, she asked for a deck of tarot cards. So I'm like, oh, it must not be that weird if you would like tarot and learn how to read tarot, but okay. Casey, the younger, she's all about it. So like when I get crystals, she's like, well, can I buy some too? Like, can I have some? Sure. So she has her crystals on her little tray. Lily also has crystals. She's just not as, doesn't care for them as meticulously as Casey does. And then Casey will let me do Reiki on her. Lily will not. Lily's like, no, thank you. Casey likes the sound bowls and the other instruments that I have. Lily likes no parts of it. She's like, oh, the noise makes me creep. Like, I don't like the noise. I don't like the noise. But then again, I'm like, do you really not like the noise, or are you just giving me a hard time? The jury's out still. But back in those early days, it was really the yoga. I was just going on Saturday mornings for an hour. And I felt awkward and uncomfortable, but it felt good to just claim that time for myself. So I was like, I'll just do this every Saturday morning. And with that, when you're in yoga, they have you focusing on your breath. And so my cousin is also into yoga, and she was like, oh, have you tried meditation? At that point, I was like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I gradually integrated meditation, and I just did it in the morning. So I still to this day use the Calm app. And that was how I started back in 2015. With meditation, they have a guided meditation. So like if you're new to it, they like literally have a 7-day beginners series, and then they have a 21-day series. And so that was really how I just started doing it. So I've meditated every day for over 5 years now. And I could feel myself being able to cope better after I started meditating. I was still get frustrated and irritated, but I could breathe through it more without lashing out and snapping as quickly and as mean as I had done in the past. So I could feel these shifts happening. So I was like, something is working. And then, like I said, I just happened to stumble on the Reiki. And as a level 1 Reiki practitioner, you can Reiki yourself. You're just at that attunement. You're not able to do Reiki on others. So I would Reiki myself sometimes. And I really just started meditating in the morning when I would wake up. And then if I felt stressed throughout the day, I would just take a couple minutes, while Casey was playing quietly by herself, or Lily, when Casey were playing together, then I would just, do some hand placements for Reiki. And it was really just that shift. I could feel things moving because we hold all of the energy of those past experiences within us. And then the life coaching piece, that was huge. So then I could recognize, oh, this triggered me. I'm running this pattern. Hold on. Let me stop. Let me check. Is the meaning of this situation 100% true? No, it's not. So let me look at the evidence that says this is not 100% true and focus on that rather than all the negative things that I had been focusing on. Plus, it allowed me to not take things personally from my husband. It allowed me to not take things personally from my littles. Because I mean, face it, little kids can be mean to parents too.
Mm-hmm.
As mean as we can be to ourselves. And especially when you have a little mini me that's just like you.
Yeah.
So
even if they don't mean it, even
yeah.
if what they're saying comes from a really innocent place, it can still feel pretty awful.
Yes. And then also too, just being able to let go of, offhanded comments that my parents would make or my family would make or friends would make. And it just allowed me to let go of a lot of the things that I would hear and then hold on to and say like, oh, I'm not doing this right because so-and-so said this, or, oh, I saw this on TV and, that's how this person's doing it and I'm not doing that. So it's not right. I was able to let a lot of that go just with the mindset work through coaching. And then I'll say, so the journey is never done. There's always work to do. But now I'm at a place where I don't get triggered as long or as often. And when I do, I don't go as deep into the spiral as I used to. And so since then I've added sound healing to my practice and then also emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. And so Casey will tap when she is, so Casey is definitely much more sensitive than Lily. And so when Casey gets overwhelmed at the end of the day and she's tired, she'll just cry and she doesn't know why she's crying. So I'll say to her, like, let's tap. And she'll tell me no. But she finally did fess up not that long ago that when we leave the room, she does tap by herself. So, and that helps her. And she also meditates when she gets overwhelmed. And, that helps to give, like the brain a chance to regulate itself and snap out of that triggered fight, flight, or freeze mode.
And a lot of what you're talking about too is rooted in DBT. And like all I kept thinking was like cognitive distortions and how you had this like all or nothing thinking and you really challenged that. So like you said, the journey is never ending. You're still on this journey, and it's ever evolving. How do you feel about yourself as, I don't even want to focus just as a mom. I guess I'll ask it as two separate questions. How do you feel about yourself as a mom and how do you feel about yourself as Kim today?
Oh, it's a complete 180. So as a mom, I feel much more relaxed and calm and settled into that role. And I don't pressure myself to meet the expectations of others. I'm able to look and say, wow, my girls are doing well in school. They're happy. They're healthy. I'm meeting their needs. I've broken the cycle of the generational and childhood trauma. So like, good job, Kim. Awesome.
Yes.
Like your work is done. I mean, not really, because we have to get through high school with 2 girls and college with 2 girls. But like the beginning stages, the work is done. So, and I know that we're doing a good job, my husband and me, because at school, the teachers will say, wow, we just love having your girls in our class. Oh my gosh, your girls are so well behaved. Your girls are the breath of the fresh air when the class is driving us crazy. And so both my girls have a pretty good sense of humor. And so Casey's in 5th grade and her teacher said to me, she was like, yeah, I see Casey side-eyeing the bad kids. I'm like, yeah, we all have no filter. So I'm like, I'm not surprised because she was like, I can only imagine what she comes home to tell you. So it's like hearing that feedback from people who really don't know me. They have no idea what the struggle has been when raising my girls when they were little. It's like that validation that I no longer need externally because I can validate myself. But I always say it's that added bonus validation that I'm like, yes, I'm doing this. It's good. And I don't question myself so much anymore. Like I have friends who put so much pressure on themselves still. And as their girls are teenagers to make sure their girls have everything. It's like, no, you are running yourself ragged and you're putting yourself in debt unnecessarily. Give them a choice. So just a couple weeks ago, we had Spirit Week and the kids could dress up in different things. Like, and of course it's way more complicated than when we were in school with like crazy hat day, silly sock day. Now it's dress your age day. And so they assign each grade an age group. So it was like an old person, a teenager, an adult, a baby. And then of course who has baby stuff. Like, so then you have to go buy the onesie and you buy the binky and you buy the bib and all of these things. And there's one mom in my circle and she literally forces her daughter to do Spirit Week every year. And then she complains about how stressful it is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, have you asked your daughter if she wants to participate in Spirit Week? And she's like, well, she doesn't really, but I don't want to hear it because I know that when Spirit Week comes and she doesn't have the things, and she's going to regret not having them. And I want her to, be a part of, like, show her school spirit and not be the antisocial one because, whoa, if she doesn't want to do it, don't force her. And so that's
Yeah.
the big lesson I've, I asked my girls, do you want to do this? No. Okay. Then we're not doing it. Because in 5 years, it's not going to matter. In 5 weeks, it's not going to matter if they dress up like a baby at school for Spirit Week. Like, it doesn't.
No, and I mean, if I'm being real, like what? Like what even is that?
Right?
Like,
Oh, this year's Spirit Week was crazy. It was like high roller day. So it was like bust out the faux fur and who has a faux fur jacket just laying around? And then it was dress your age day. And then I forget what the other one was, but it was like weird, wacky stuff. I'm like, who is thinking of these things?
who's coming up with this stuff?
Yeah. So like save yourself the time and effort and energy and stop like putting so much pressure again on yourself. So I give my girls a lot of autonomy when it's possible, because then I'm like, okay, that's your opinion. I want you to trust your opinion, trust yourself to make decisions, which wasn't something that I was given really as a kid growing up. So I'm like, yep, okay, you don't want to do it. Fine. I'm not forcing you. It makes my life so much easier. It's one less thing for me to manage on my to-do list. So completely different. Now I don't really give a shit what other parents think about me. I'm like, I don't really care. You can like me or not.
I love that.
That person doesn't like me and that means something, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care.
That must feel so good.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Say the same thing as like the Kim outside of being a mom, like just the Kim as a woman. I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin than I used to be because I let so much stuff go. And I really, it's like about myself. Do I feel happy in these clothes? Do I feel happy in this situation? Am I enjoying my time around this person? If all of those things are a yes, like great. If not, then I don't force myself to do things anymore like I used to. I'm much more comfortable to say, no, thank you. I'm all set, or that's not for me, and be okay with it and not go into this shame spiral about how I should, feel differently about it. So definitely much more easygoing and relaxed than I used to be because I've let so much go.
And that reminds me of another line. You're not shoulding all over yourself anymore.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I love that. I love that. You have been so amazing at being so succinct and clear. And I can I get this huge vibe of like self-advocacy from you and just like empowerment and listening to yourself and trusting your inner voice. And you've brought us full circle so beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
You made it easy for me because I can bring it to my wrap-up question without having to lead you anywhere. You brought us here. So, what do you hope my listeners take away from your story and your experience?
Yeah. So whether you're, pregnant or you're a mom with an infant, like whatever stage of motherhood or womanhood you're in, just allow yourself to let go of the people pleasing and just take that pressure off of yourself and really check in with yourself. Listen to your gut. Is what you're doing a hell yes or a hell no? If it is a hell no, listen to that and don't go against that, because that's where we get stuck in this trap of being miserable, being angry, being resentful. And speaking up too, because I, of course, would speak up to my husband, but when I couldn't really articulate early on what I needed because I didn't really know. And I was afraid to give myself the space to figure it out because I was always like, well, what if this isn't right? What if this doesn't work? Oh, it's a mistake. It'll be a mistake. I just was so hung up on not making mistakes, again, looking for that perfection. And once I let that go, I was like, oh, I'm going to try it. If it works, fantastic. Then I can stop looking for right now because this works for right now and it's getting me to where I need to be, but also being okay with things change. So if something works today, it doesn't mean it's going to work in 1 year, and being okay with saying, okay, that stopped working. So I'm going to table that for now. Let me find the next thing. And really just giving yourself the space to explore and discover what it is that brings you that joy and happiness, what it is that helps you to cope. Because let's face it, life is a roller coaster. And do we want to ride the adult coaster with like the loops and the backwards and the big drops and things? No, like I'm happy on the kiddie coaster because you still feel the wind in your hair.
Yes.
It's not terrifying. It's fun. And so, finding what will give you the kiddie coaster ride versus the terrifying adult roller coaster ride that, freaks you out and makes you think like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again.
And I think I'll add to that too, that taking that first step may not be easy. Taking that first step to say, all right, I'm going to do this for me. It may not be easy, but from hearing your story, it is worth it. Yes. It is worth it to put in the effort for yourself.
Yes, because what I didn't want to happen, and I know most people don't want to happen, is that you end up worse than where you are, or you stay stuck there because it doesn't feel nice in that moment. So like let's bring in the joy and the fun, because I really I love to have fun. That's let's have fun. How can we make this fun? And when that's missing, then it just feels soul sucking.
Yeah. So the themes that I've gotten from your story are self-advocacy, finding joy, finding glimmers, trusting your gut, and it gets better.
Yes, 100%.
It gets better. A lot of my listeners are in the thick of it. They're in the 4th trimester. They are suffering from postpartum mental health disorders, or they are suffering from PTSD from a traumatic birth, and they cannot see the other side. It gets better.
It does. It does. Yeah. And it might not happen tomorrow. It might not happen in 2 weeks. It can take 6 months, but I promise you it does get better, because when Lily was born in 2009, Casey was born in 2012. I left my teaching career in 2014. That same year I started therapy, and it really wasn't until the beginning of 2019 that I felt I had finally gotten that traction to where I was like, I got this. Yeah. I got this. So really 5 years of being in the thick of it, going through therapy, going through life coaching, going through different healing modalities. And there were days where I was like, I really don't think I can do this for one more second. But I knew that I wanted to leave a legacy for my kids that was better than what was left for me. And that was what helped that is what kept me moving forward.
Yeah. You got to find your why. And that's what my shirt says. It says, keep going.
Yes.
Just keep going. Keep going, because it will get better.
It will.
This has been a really fun conversation. Your energy, I wish I could match your energy. Oh my gosh. I wish I could take some of it with me, because I am fried. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and for sharing your story. And I'm excited for my listeners to get to experience it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for allowing me to join you on this Friday evening and to share my story and to be able to give hope to other women and feel less alone.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing your journey and for instilling the message that things can and will get better. I wish I could have bottled up a little bit of your energy to take with me, but I definitely left our session feeling a little bit lighter. If you want to follow along with us on Quiet Connection, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection or at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can support our community by writing a review on your favorite podcast platform and by sharing our episodes on social media. You could also consider becoming a Patreon member and gain access to things like bonus content, ad-free listening, and goodies in the mail once a month. If you'd like to share your personal journey, you can reach us through our website, quietconnectionpodcast.com, or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.